The house that kept watching. After midnight, the mirrors in this house stop reflecting. They start remembering. October 14th, 1997. Hawthorne House, Blackwood County, Maine. Time, 12:07 a.m. No one in Blackwood County could remember a time when the house wasn't abandoned. That alone should have been impossible. The building sat at the edge of Old Mill Road, where the asphalt cracked into gravel and the trees leaned inward as if trying to choke the path. Hawthorne House was older than the county records, older than the church that stood rotting 3 miles south, older than the cemetery whose stones had long since surrendered their names to erosion. People agreed on one thing only. No one had ever seen the house being lived in. And yet, it never looked empty. The windows were intact. The roof did not sag. The front door stayed closed, never boarded, never chained. And inside, mirrors remained perfectly clean. That was the first detail that disturbed me, because dust gathers everywhere, on floors, on walls, on ceilings. But mirrors? Mirrors, remember? I arrived just after midnight, my car engine dying into silence as I parked across the road. The air was wrong, too still, like the world was holding its breath. Even the insects had stopped their endless screaming. My watch ticked louder than it should have. 12:07 a.m. The house loomed ahead, 3 stories of pale wood bleached nearly white by decades of weather. Moonlight traced the shape of every window, and for a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw movement behind the glass. I blinked. Nothing. That should have been my warning. The first mirror. The front door opened without resistance. No creak, no groan, just silence. Inside, the smell was faint but unmistakable. Old paper, dry rot, and something metallic beneath it all. The foyer stretched wider than the house appeared from outside, its ceiling disappearing into darkness above, and directly across from the entrance hung a mirror. Tall, oval, framed in blackened silver. It was spotless. No cracks, no fog, no dust. I stepped closer, my footsteps echoing unnaturally as if the house itself were repeating them a half-second late. The reflection stared back at me. At first, everything was normal. My coat, my face, the dim light spilling in from the open door behind me. Then the reflection blinked. I hadn't. The figure in the mirror smiled slowly, its lips stretching just a fraction too wide. The eyes held mine with an intimacy that felt invasive, as though it recognized me in a way no living person ever could. Then it raised its hand. I did not. I stumbled back, heart hammering, breath fogging the air. The mirror returned to normal instantly, showing only my own terror-stricken face. I told myself it was exhaustion. I told myself mirrors can trick the mind in low light. I was lying. The house's history. Blackwood County records mention Hawthorne House only 3 times. The first was 1872, when it was noted as existing prior to land division. No builder listed, no owner named. The second mention came in 1911, after a fire destroyed 3 neighboring homes. Hawthorne House stood untouched, its mirrors reportedly found facing inward during the investigation. The final mention was 1946, a single sentence. Property abandoned, interiors left as found, all mirrors removed. They weren't. Every hallway I walked down held another one, some small and round, others tall enough to reflect entire rooms, and in each reflection something felt delayed. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to be noticed. I began to hear whispers, not voices exactly, but the sensation of speech pressed against my thoughts, like someone mouthing words inches from my ear without sound. Names surfaced, not mine. Names I had never heard before. The strangers. It was in the parlor that I saw them clearly for the first time. The room was wide, its furniture draped in pale sheets that moved gently despite the lack of air. A grand mirror dominated the far wall, taller than any doorway I had seen. I approached slowly. My reflection appeared. Then another figure stood behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. Back to the mirror. The stranger remained. A man, thin, pale, eyes sunken with sleeplessness. His clothes were outdated, wrong in a way that made my stomach drop. He stared at me with open curiosity, like a child examining an insect. His mouth moved. The mirror did not produce sound, but my head filled with his words anyway. "You can see us now." Behind him, more figures emerged. Women, children, elderly shapes bent unnaturally. None of them blinked. None of them breathed. They stood inside the mirror as though it were a room rather than a surface, watching me with a hunger that felt patient, ancient. One by one, their reflections turned away from me and began to walk deeper into the house. 12:42 a.m. My watch vibrated against my wrist. The time was moving strangely, too fast, then too slow. Every mirror I passed now showed figures that were not there. Some stared back. Others pretended not to see me at all, going about silent routines, sitting, standing, waiting for what I didn't yet understand. I reached a narrow staircase leading upward. The mirror beside it reflected the stairs, but not the way they looked in front of me. In the reflection, the staircase descended, downward, into darkness, and someone was climbing up. The staircase did not creak beneath my weight. That was wrong. Old houses complain. They groan, protest, announce your presence like they're offended you exist. Hawthorne House accepted me quietly, as if it had already decided I belonged there. With each step upward, the air grew colder. Not the sharp cold of winter, but the stale chill of underground places where the sun has never reached. My breath began to fog, though the night outside had been mild. Halfway up the stairs, I noticed something unsettling. The mirrors weren't just on the walls anymore. They were built into them. Long vertical strips of reflective glass lined the staircase like narrow windows, each one reflecting a slightly different version of the same climb. In some reflections, I was higher. In others, lower. In one, I was standing still, staring straight back at myself with a look of absolute certainty. That reflection didn't blink. I reached the landing at 1:06 a.m. The hallway stretched longer than the house's exterior could possibly allow. Doors lined both sides, all closed, all painted the same pale color that peeled away like shedding skin. At the far end hung another mirror. This one was different. Its surface wasn't glass. It looked deep, liquid, as if the reflection had depth you could fall into. I stepped closer. The hallway behind me did not appear in the mirror. Instead, it showed a furnished version of the same corridor, lamps lit, wallpaper intact, carpet clean and unblemished. And walking toward the mirror from that reflected hallway were people, dozens of them. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if pacing themselves. When the first reached the mirror's surface, he stopped inches away, lifting a trembling hand. His fingers pressed against the glass from the other side, flattening unnaturally. His eyes widened, not with fear, with relief. "It's open," his voice said directly inside my skull. "It's finally open." I staggered backward. The mirror rippled. More hands pressed forward. Faces crowded the surface, mouths opening silently, eyes glistening with anticipation. The door behind me slammed shut. I ran. Not blindly, but desperately, ducking into the first room I could force open. A bedroom. Bare except for a rusted metal bed frame and a dresser pushed against the far wall. And above the dresser, another mirror, smaller, cracked. The moment I stepped inside, the temperature dropped sharply. My ears rang with pressure like I'd descended too quickly underground. The mirror showed the room as it was, then it changed. The bed frame filled with a body. A woman lay there, hands folded neatly over her chest, eyes wide open and glassy. Her mouth hung slightly ajar, frozen mid-breath. Her reflection turned its head toward me. "You're early," she whispered, not aloud, but into me. "Most of them come closer to morning." I demanded to know who she was. She smiled. "I live here," she said. "So do you. You just haven't stayed yet." The mirror cracked further, splitting her face into jagged fragments. In each shard, the woman wore a different expression: terror, calm, joy, resignation. Behind her, figures gathered in the reflected doorway, waiting. I checked my watch again. 2:11 a.m. No, that wasn't possible. Only minutes had passed, or hours. Time felt folded in on itself, overlapping like warped film. The whispers grew louder now, bleeding together into a low, constant murmur. Names repeated, dates, times. 1883, 1919, 1946, 3:17 a.m. Always that time, always repeated. I fled the room and continued down the hallway, passing doors that now rattled as I moved by. Shadows slipped beneath the door frames, pooling across the floor like spilled ink. Mirrors lined the walls more densely now, some reflecting the past, others showing scenes that had not happened yet. In one, I saw myself standing in the hallway, older, thinner, eyes hollowed out by sleeplessness. He raised a finger to the glass. "Don't look back," he mouthed. I did anyway. The hallway ended at a door marked only by height, lower than the others, its handle positioned where a child's hand would reach. Inside was a nursery. Dusty toys lay scattered across the floor, untouched by decay. A rocking horse swayed gently on its own. Opposite the door stood a wide mirror framed in peeling white paint. Children stared back at me. They stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes too large, faces pale and drained of color. None of them smiled. One stepped forward. "We got stuck," she said softly. "They told us to look." I asked who. Her reflection tilted its head. "The house," she replied. "It shows you what it needs." Behind the children, I saw adults pressing closer, faces contorted with desperation, fingers clawing at the invisible boundary. The children never moved. They didn't need to. They were already where they belonged. 2:58 a.m. The house began to change. Walls stretched and narrowed. Doorways shifted when I wasn't looking. The ceiling lowered, forcing me to hunch as I moved. Every mirror now showed movement. The strangers were leaving their reflections, stepping closer, pressing through. I felt the pressure in my ears again as something brushed past me. Cold, heavy, wrong. A presence without weight, without breath. The mirrors were thinning, and I understood then. They weren't windows, they were doors. My watch vibrated violently. 3:12 a.m. The whispers unified into a single voice. "Almost time." I found the central stairwell again, though I didn't remember returning. The large mirror at its base pulsed faintly, glowing from within. Inside it, the house looked whole, alive, filled with people. Every room occupied, every mirror empty. A figure stood at the center of the reflection, tall, indistinct, its face obscured by shadow. It turned toward me. "We need somewhere to go," it said. "You open the way." I backed away. The mirror's surface bulged outward, cracked, split. Hands emerged. 3:16 a.m. The house inhaled. Every mirror vibrated. And somewhere deep inside the walls, something began to knock, slowly, deliberately, like a heartbeat. Once, twice, 3 times. The knocking stopped. Not gradually, not with a final echo. It simply ceased, like a heart that had decided it no longer needed to beat. Every mirror in Hawthorne House went dark. Not black, not shattered, empty. They no longer reflected the house, the rooms, or even me. Their surfaces turned dull and flat, absorbing light rather than returning it. I raised my hand and waved it inches from the glass. Nothing moved. For the first time since entering the house, I felt truly alone. That was when the footsteps began. They came from everywhere, from behind walls, from beneath the floorboards, from inside the air itself. Footsteps layered over one another, heavy and uneven, as if the walkers were still unfamiliar with gravity. Shadows detached themselves from corners, stretching into tall, distorted silhouettes that slid across the walls without sound. One passed through me. I screamed as cold flooded my chest, the sensation like drowning in winter water. The presence carried memories with it, images not my own. A woman screaming in a parlor, a child staring into a mirror at night, a man realizing too late that his reflection was smiling. They weren't invading, they were returning. The walls began to whisper, not words, histories. Every sound the house had ever heard replayed at once. Arguments, laughter, sobbing prayers, the wet thud of bodies collapsing to the floor. The mirrors absorbed it all, drinking the noise greedily. I stumbled into the main parlor again, my legs barely responding. The grand mirror dominated the room. Its surface shimmered faintly now, like oil on water. Inside it, the figures stood shoulder to shoulder, not strangers anymore. Residents. They looked calm, complete. The tall figure from before stepped forward, its outline sharpened, resolving into something almost human. "This is the exchange," it said gently. "It's always been the exchange." I asked what that meant. The figure gestured around the room. "The house fills," it said. "The world empties." The mirrors were never meant to show reflections. They showed vacancies, empty spaces waiting to be occupied. When someone looked too long, when they noticed the delay, the wrongness, the house marked them. Their reflection began to drift because it was being measured, judged, prepared. "Most don't notice," the figure continued. "Those who do, come back." I realized then why no one had seen the house lived in, because no one left it. Movement caught my attention in the mirror. I was there, not as I was, but as I would become. His eyes were flat, resigned. His posture carried the weight of decades. He pressed a hand to the glass. "I tried to warn you," he said softly, "but the house needs a caretaker." I shook my head, backing away. He smiled, not cruelly, but with understanding. "Someone has to make sure the mirrors stay clean." The tall figure turned to face me fully. Its face finally emerged, an unsettling collage of features, as though many faces were layered atop one another and never fully settled. "You can leave," it said, "but you won't go alone." The mirror behind it rippled, shapes pressed forward. I felt the pull then, not physical but psychological, a tug on my sense of self, my memories, my name. "Or you can stay," it continued, "and the doors will close." I understood the implication. If I stayed, the mirrors would seal. If I left, something would follow. 3:19 a.m. time resumed its normal pace. That alone terrified me more than anything else. The mirrors brightened suddenly, reflecting the room as it truly was, dusty, empty, abandoned. No figures, no strangers, just me. The front door stood open. Moonlight spilled across the floor like an invitation, or a warning. I ran, down the stairs, through the foyer, past the oval mirror near the door. At the threshold, I glanced back. The mirror reflected me standing outside, still inside the house. Our eyes met. He raised his hand. I didn't. I don't remember driving away. I only remember the sun rising and finding myself parked miles down the road, my car stalled on the shoulder. When I checked the time, 3:17 a.m. It hasn't changed since. No matter how many watches I wear, no matter how many clocks I check, every reflective surface now shows something behind me, someone waiting. And every night just after midnight I hear knocking from inside the mirrors. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Home had mirrors. The gas station bathroom mirror was the first to betray me. I avoided looking at it at first, kept my eyes on the cracked tiles, the flickering fluorescent light overhead. But mirrors don't require permission. They wait. When I finally glanced up, my reflection appeared instantly. Too instantly. No delay, no distortion. That terrified me more than the house ever had. Then something moved behind my eyes. Not a shadow, not a trick of light. A shift, like a curtain being drawn back inside my skull. The reflection leaned closer to the glass. I stayed where I was. "You left the door open," it said silently. "Now we need somewhere else." The mirror cracked straight down the center. I ran before it finished breaking. The first night after I slept in my car with the rear-view mirror covered by a jacket. It didn't help. Reflections don't need glass anymore once they've learned the shape of you. Dreams came in fragments, rooms that weren't mine, hallways that stretched longer every time I tried to reach the end, mirrors breathing softly like sleeping animals. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up choking. The windows were fogged from the inside, handprints pressed outward. By the third night, it wasn't just me. A motel clerk stared too long into the lobby mirror and began screaming about people standing where his reflection should be. A woman in Portland shattered every mirror in her apartment after swearing she saw her dead husband brushing his teeth. News reports called it stress, mold exposure, mass hysteria. They didn't mention Hawthorne House. They never do, because Hawthorne House doesn't stay in one place. I returned to Blackwood County records, buried deeper this time. Older, written by hand. The house had worn other names, other addresses. It appeared, stayed dormant, fed, then vanished, leaving behind empty lots and people who refused to talk about mirrors ever again. Each time, it took a caretaker, someone who noticed, someone who could see. I started to understand why my reflection still followed me. I hadn't chosen yet. The first stranger appeared in my apartment mirror at 1:32 a.m. A woman, young. Her eyes darted around the reflected room, frantic. She banged on the glass from inside, her mouth forming words too fast to follow. Then she noticed me. Her relief was instant. "You can see me," she said. "Please, it hurts to stay here." I reached toward the mirror before I could stop myself. Her hand met mine. Cold, so cold. And then she was gone. The mirror returned my reflection, but something had changed. The room felt fuller. Every night after that, someone else appeared. They never stayed long. They didn't need to. Once they passed through, the air thickened. The walls felt closer. Sounds echoed wrong, like the apartment was larger inside than out. At 3:17 a.m., they all gathered. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them, standing, waiting. I received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Hawthorne House, intact, clean, occupied. In the reflection of the front door mirror, me, standing inside, holding keys. On the back, handwritten, "The house is empty again." I stopped sleeping. I covered every reflective surface. It didn't matter. Windows at night are mirrors too, and every reflection now smiled just a fraction too slowly. The knocking returned, not from mirrors, from walls, from floors, from the space behind my eyes. 12:59 a.m. tonight. The time is coming back into alignment. I know where the road leads. I know what waits there. The house doesn't hunt. It calls, and caretakers always return. The road to Hawthorne House no longer appeared on any map. That should have stopped me. Instead, I recognized it immediately. The trees bending inward, the way the fog clung low to the ground like it was trying to hide something beneath it. My headlights barely touched the darkness ahead. They didn't need to. The house was already waiting. Every window glowed faintly, not with light, but with attention. I parked where I had the first night. The engine stalled on its own. Silence followed, heavy and deliberate. When I stepped out, the front door opened. Inside, the air felt warm, lived in. The mirrors were no longer clean. They were busy. Every reflective surface showed movement. People walking through hallways that didn't exist, standing in rooms that were no longer there, watching one another with tired familiarity. They didn't notice me. They didn't need to. I belonged now. Each room told a different story. In the parlor, a family sat quietly, staring at a mirror that showed nothing at all. Their hands were clasped. They were waiting for something they had already accepted would never come. In the nursery, the children stood motionless, eyes fixed forward. They didn't look frightened anymore. They looked trained. The central stairwell mirror waited at the heart of the house. Its surface was calm, still. Inside it, my other self stood upright, keys in hand. He looked relieved. "You felt it too, didn't you?" he said. "The pressure, the overcrowding." I nodded. The house hummed softly beneath our feet, a deep vibration like contentment. "They needed somewhere permanent," he continued. "Mirrors were only temporary." I asked what would happen to the world outside. He smiled. "Nothing noticeable," he said. "People lose things all the time." At 3:16 a.m., the mirrors began to empty. Figures stepped backward into walls, into floors, into the bones of the house itself. The reflections faded until only rooms remained, quiet, stable. The house exhaled. 3:17 a.m. I felt it then, the locking sensation, like a door closing behind my thoughts. The mirror rippled once. Then it showed only me, alone, complete. The keys were already in my hand. I didn't remember picking them up. I understood their purpose instinctively. I walked the house until dawn, wiping mirrors clean, straightening frames, ensuring every surface was ready, waiting. Because reflections don't appear on their own. They require invitation. The house has settled again. From the outside, it looks abandoned. It always does. If you ever pass it and notice your reflection, hesitate. If it smiles before you do, if it looks relieved to see you, please understand. We are not trying to trap you. We are only trying to make room. And the mirrors are getting crowded. If your reflection ever lingers, don't look again. If your reflection hesitates tonight, the house is ready. The house is still making room, and your reflection is already gone.